Esty Dwek, Head of Global Market Strategies de NATIXIS, IM Solutions. Good morning. Welcome to Negocios Televisión.
Good morning.
What's your point of view about the situation now?
I'm still very optimistic and constructive about the backdrop for equity markets and risk assets in general. We saw a bit of a stalling in the move in yields, and I think as that picks up again over the coming months, we're going to continue to see equity markets move higher, and we're going to see the rotation into cyclicals resume speed again. So we think energy, materials, financials should all benefit again in the coming months.
Stock markets are overvalued?
I don't think so. Yes, valuations are high, but they're not at extreme levels. And I think what is important to keep in mind is that valuations in themselves do not usually lead to corrections. So what we're trying to make the difference is between high valuations and market sentiment. And I think sentiment and positioning is very important. If we become too optimistic, if we become too complacent, then you have a bigger risk. But right now, what we're seeing in the markets is there are worries. There are worries about inflation, there are worries about COVID, there are worries about bubbles. All of that means that investors are not too aggressively positioned. So yes, valuations are high, but I think markets can still move higher.
Are you scared about inflation?
I think it's something we have to keep an eye on, but I'm not scared. I don't think we're going to see inflation spiral out of control over the next 6 to 12 months. We know the second quarter is going to see higher inflation, but I don't think we're going to see that sustained 6 months from now. We just have to keep an eye on supply chain bottlenecks, on shipping costs.
Esty Dwek, sorry because we lost the connection. We are talking about inflation. Inflation, are you scared about them?
No, I'm not scared about inflation, but we have to keep an eye on inflation rates anyway. The risk is to the upside. At the moment, I don't think we're going to see higher sustained inflation 6, 12 months from now, but we have to keep an eye on supply chain bottlenecks, on shipping costs. Some of these costs are going to come through into prices. Some of the margins for companies might be squeezed a little bit, but the core part here is the services inflation. And as long as that doesn't rise too much, and I don't see how it would given slack in the labor market, I don't think we're going to see runaway inflation, but it's something we need to keep an eye on.
What do you expect about Federal Reserve tomorrow?
Not very much tomorrow. The Federal Reserve has really done what it said it was going to do, and we think that's going to continue. The outlook is obviously improving, and they acknowledged that in March. I think they're going to start over the coming months to prepare us to talk about tapering, but they're not going to talk about it yet. Maybe in June, maybe in Jackson Hole at the big meeting in August. But for now, they are really looking at unemployment rates, and they're looking at unemployment rates for minorities, for lower educated jobs, and for lower earning jobs. And all of those are still much higher than the average and much higher than before the pandemic. So they think easing or ongoing accommodative monetary policies are appropriate. And so I think later in the year, they'll taper end of year into next year, and they probably still do not hike until 2023.
What's your opinion about first 100 days about Joe Biden in the United States?
Joe Biden has been very active in his first 100 days. He's done more executive orders than pretty much anyone, and he's really shown us 3 key priorities. Obviously, COVID, vaccination, and boosting American growth. We also learned that the relations with China are going to remain difficult and tense. They're going to be more traditional and smoother, but they're not going to be easier. And we also know that climate is a very serious focus for Joe Biden. He started with executive orders on that. He rejoined the Paris Accords, and now he has a lot of green infrastructure planned into his infrastructure packages. So we'll see how much he receives. But he's really shown us his priorities, and he's going to do everything he can, especially while the Democrats control Congress, to get his policies through.
Thanks a lot, Esty Dwek, Head of Global Market Strategies in NATIXIS. NATIXIS Solutions. Thanks for having this time with us.
My pleasure.